Congressman Ro Khanna from California. Congressman, how are you today?
That's great. You can just call me Ro.
Ro and I'm Kanew. Together, we do a lot of boat-related stuff. You put together a press conference with survivors of Epstein and Maxwell.
I don't want to send a direct message to him. I'm already scared enough. Just pass the vote. Listen to us. This is not a hoax.
Can you tell us the situation with it and what the hope is?
Well, these survivors deserve to be heard by the American people. They told such emotional, powerful stories today about being raped at the age of 13 or 14, about Jeffrey Epstein calling them, telling them to give him a massage, and then asking them to get other high school girls, farming them out to other rich and powerful men. And then when they would call the police, basically didn't get any help because Epstein was connected to powerful business leaders, powerful politicians. So they told a story of a cover-up protecting Jeffrey Epstein and a cover-up protecting other rich and powerful men who have abused underage girls. They actually are bringing the country together. I said at the press conference, I've never done a press conference before with Marjorie Taylor Greene.
This is the most important fight we can wage here in Congress, fighting for innocent people that never receive justice.
But this is honestly not a Republican or Democratic issue. This is an issue of justice. The rich and powerful in this country don't get to play by one set of rules and another set of rules for everyone else. We have 212 Democrats who have signed a petition. Thomas Massie, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Lauren Boebert, Nancy Mace, who signed this petition. We're at 216. We need 2 more signatures, and then we will get a vote in the whole House of Representatives to have the full release of the Epstein files, to finally start to have accountability for these people who committed some of the most horrific acts in this country.
Most of the networks had it, but of course, Fox was focused on something else entirely. Our Tennessee representatives, 7 Republicans, none of them have signed on to this. What specifically would it do if this passed? Because I've seen Tim Burchett talk about how there's no need for it now.
Like Tim Burchett, he was on the legislation initially. He's on the Oversight Committee. Hopefully he can see the facts. The legislation would force the release of the entire Epstein files, protect the survivor's identity, force the release of all the witness interviews, financial documents, who covered up for Jeffrey Epstein, were foreign governments involved. Tim knows, because he's on the Oversight Committee, that what was released was less than 1% of the documents, and 97% of that stuff was already in the public domain. This would force the release of the whole files. Who should be the judge? The survivors. They said, do you support the Massey kind of legislation? All of them raised their hands. They were there saying that for closure, they want the release. And I hope Tim will get on the discharge petition. He had the courage to get on the bill. I know the White House is running huge interference. It just will take 2 more people of courage to get on it.
Trump is clearly running some sort of threat campaign. We can only speculate as to why he might not want this to come out. These are the same people that talk about protecting children all the time. Trans rights, books. It's always protect the kids, protect the kids. But now here we are with a very real way of protecting kids and holding powerful people accountable. And suddenly they're not interested in doing it anymore.
Kanew, that's a brilliant point. This is about protecting America's children, making sure that rich and powerful men can't abuse underage girls in America with no consequence. That when that happens, we've lost the spiritual and moral soul of this nation. Standing up for America's children. We're standing up for America's women, survivors. We're standing against a 2-tier system of justice in America, one for the rich and powerful and another one for forgotten Americans. And I think that's why this is resonating. Progressives, moderates, independents, MAGA supporters all are resonating around this. Fundamental to this country. Pedophiles and powerful men who raped underage girls should be held to account.
I wanted to talk briefly about another issue where you and Marjorie Taylor Greene are kind of finding common cause, the Gaza issue. It seems like there's a disconnect between where rank and file Dems are now and where Dem politicians are in terms of stopping what's happening in Israel. A lot of people are calling it genocide. I personally would call it genocide, the famine, and moving them towards, even Jake Sullivan is now saying an arms embargo.
There's never been a bigger disconnect between our governing class, quote unquote, leading politicians of the Democratic Party and where ordinary Americans are on this issue, ordinary Democrats. I saw Jake Sullivan up in New Hampshire this Labor Day weekend, and I talked to a lot of people with Bernie Sanders. Ordinary New Hampshire Democrats want to stop any military sales to Netanyahu that are being used to kill civilians. They support Delia Ramirez's Stop the Bombs Act and Sanders' act to stop the military sales, supporting my call for the United States to follow 147 other countries, to follow France, Great Britain, Canada, Australia, and recognize a Palestinian state that doesn't have Hamas, that has elections, that lives as a two-state solution with Israel. And they are frustrated, not just at the Democrats who continue to provide a blank check to Netanyahu. They are frustrated with Democrats who just think they don't have to speak on this issue. They think, okay, we can speak about the militarization of the streets. We can speak about Donald Trump's irrational tariff policy. We can speak about Donald Trump trying to redistrict, Donald Trump's taking away Medicaid. But we just aren't going to touch this issue because we don't want to offend AIPAC. We don't want to offend some of the interest groups or donors. Let me be very clear. Anyone who's silent right now on this is not going to be leading the future of the Democratic Party. This is an issue of moral conviction for many Americans. This is the time that people are seeing, where do folks stand? Do they stand for a more moral America?
Emma Vigeland said something like, if you're not on the right side of this, I kind of don't trust you on anything else. And whoever is leading the Democratic Party, whoever ends up being the nominee, is going to have to be on the right side of this, which is why it seems like the sooner they make that clear, the better, because you're going to have to end up there eventually, as Pete Buttigieg found out when he gave kind of a mealy-mouthed answer on Pod Save America and had to walk that back. I'm Jewish. My grandparents survived the Holocaust. I have family in Israel. It took me a long time to start speaking up, longer than I'm proud to say, but I think it's important that people are speaking
thank you,
up.
Kanew. Your voice matters, and I didn't know that about your story, and that requires real courage on your part. But I'll say this, I don't think it'll be enough for people to say, okay, I'm going to speak up about this a year from now. Right now, the famine is taking place.
Yep.
People are saying, where do you stand today? If people don't have the courage to stand up today, I think they're missing what's happening in the base of our party.
One other thing that you talk about, not enough people talk about, especially in the wake of COVID, in the wake of this big ugly bill that's going to strip healthcare from millions of people, Medicare for all is just a no-brainer in terms of messaging and in terms of like what will actually change the country in a real way, tangible way. But it seems like it's still treated as pie in the sky. You do talk about it. You do mention it. Obviously, AOC talks about it, but it's not really at the core of the messaging in the Democratic Party. What's the holdup?
It's not a secret, big money. The money of pharma, the money of insurance companies, the money of hospital associations, people don't want to stand up to it. I was having this debate with someone yesterday. They said, well, wouldn't it have been better to be born today than born in 1970s America? I said, in certain ways, absolutely, in terms of new medicines and life-saving drugs. But did you know in 1970s, the out-of-pocket cost for healthcare was about 5 to 7% for the average American family? And today it's between 15 and 20%. This has gotten out of control, and it's led to wage stagnation because employers are having to pay for healthcare. Someone said to me, why should we want a company that's supposed to be making widgets? Why should they be in the business of having to worry about people's healthcare? That should be provided. Right. It's a burden on business, a burden on people. The most popular politician currently in office, Bernie Sanders, talks very clearly about Medicare for all. So it's a popular policy.
And to your point, Warren Buffett, I think, called the healthcare system in this country a tapeworm on the American economy. When you make these businesses pay for people's healthcare, that whole notion of benefits keeps people kind of chained to these companies in a way that they wouldn't have to be. It just is treated, even in the Democratic Party, as a crazy thing to even think about or talk about Medicare for all. So I just try to mention it as much as I can.
I appreciate that.
To me, it's just so obvious that it has to happen. And if it ever were to happen, we'll look back at these as dark days when we didn't have it. The rest of the world has this.
The rest of the world has it, wouldn't have the same burdens of costs. Could go to any doctor. You wouldn't get doctors saying, oh, it's not in your network. You wouldn't have to get prior authorization. You wouldn't have medicines denied. And your wages would go up because companies wouldn't have to be paying all this money to the healthcare companies. It is such common sense. It would help lower costs of healthcare costs for this country. We wouldn't be at 20% GDP. And it would save lives. I co-sponsored when I got to Congress, Bernie Sanders' Medicare for All bill. To me, that is such a passionate issue. But look, there will be debates in the Democratic Party about Medicare for all. I would never make a statement that if you're not for Medicare for all, you're not going to be leading the future of the Democratic Party. I did make that statement very intentionally about what's going on in Gaza. I think that's like the Iraq War. I think that is a moral line test of who we are as a country. Medicare for all, we've got to make the case, and I do believe it's the right policy, but we've got to persuade our fellow Democrats.
It's important to show leadership on stuff like that. And so I do want to ask, how do you feel about leadership right now? Jeffries and Schumer obviously obviously taking a lot of heat. Jeffries in particular for not endorsing Zohran Mamdani, which we have hit him for repeatedly. I think it's pretty ridiculous that he has not come out in support of Zohran. How are you feeling about leadership?
I've not only endorsed Zohran, I've unfortunately spent too much time on X defending him from attacks that have gone after everything from his mother, who's a brilliant Indian filmmaker, to his ethnicity. And what's so surprising to me is I would have thought everyone would be running to say, Zohran, tell us, how did you do what you did? How did you get 50,000 young people knocking on doors? How did you make it about economics and affordability? How did you put viral videos that get 10 million views? That should be the approach of the Democratic Party, saying, oh, we don't endorse in other states. I mean, come on. I've been very disappointed, obviously, in Senator Schumer in particular on policies toward Gaza, his capitulation earlier this year, going along with the continuing resolution without any commitment. I think there's a new generation. I think that Leader Jeffries has a lot of support in the Democratic caucus. He has a lot of potential in terms of rallying our caucus. We're unified, but what we have to do is figure out what the right bold message is going to be 2026 to be able to win back the House.
I understand the need to be a little more political when it comes to your own house. I think Jeffries is like having an alarm clock that intentionally doesn't wake you up. That's kind of what Rep. Jeffries feels like.
Has he come on your show?
No, I'm happy to have him on.
I'll recommend he comes on because he's taking bigger risks. I mean, he's been totally behind us on the Epstein files. There were some members who said this is a distraction. And he said, no, we're going to be on the side of trust and transparency. I hope he does get there in terms of endorsing Zohran. I think that would be a big signal.
He does get a bunch of money from AIPAC, and it feels like a lot of the people that are having hesitations around Zohran are the ones that have bigger piggy banks from AIPAC.
More of AIPAC's former leaders support me than support AIPAC. AIPAC has turned into a right-wing group.
Right.
I think it's a badge of honor often that when they attack.
100%. I ran for Congress, by the way. I don't know if you know that. And I think they gave money to Mark Green against me, and I'm a Jew with family in Israel. So you're absolutely right. People didn't even know what AIPAC was before, and I think they were probably more comfortable hiding in the shadows. The way that Israel has kind of lost Democratic rank and file is going to resonate going forward.
They tag me on social media all the time, and it actually increases my support.
How alarmed are you about where we are as a democracy? Just as a final thought here, the alarmists have yet to be wrong. That's kind of how I feel.
We're in a 5-alarm fire. I mean, they're militarizing our streets, taking away people's health care, giving tax breaks to the billionaires, deregulating AI, gutting the Department of Education, gutting Center of Disease Control, stopping vaccines, hollowing out the State Department. They're destroying sort of federal government. Just being against what they're doing. And we have to fight with everything we are. That's what I'm doing with the Epstein files. Supporting Governor Newsom's redistricting. But just being against Trump is not enough. We need to go into communities where people have faced economic hardship. We have to go into communities that have voted for Trump. We have to say that there is a better way for America. After Civil War, we had Reconstruction. After Hoover, we had FDR. After W, we had Obama. You know what Lincoln, FDR, and Obama had in common? They didn't just criticize Buchanan, Hoover, and Bush. They offered an alternative vision forward for the nation. To me, that vision is economic patriotism. It means we need a Marshall Plan for America to build economic development here and good jobs here, not just a Marshall Plan for Europe. We need to understand the American dream has slipped away from too many people. It means Medicare for all. It means a living wage, $10 a day childcare, 1,000 trade schools, taxing the billionaires. We need to offer an alternative. And when we offer an alternative, we will inspire this country to defeat Trumpism. We're not going to defeat Trumpism simply attacking him and ridiculing him. We've been doing that since he walked down the escalator. It hasn't worked. People are hungry for a new vision in this country.
Amen. And to me, wanting that change is patriotism. One last thing. Can I get you to say, I'm Congressman Khanna, Holler the Holler?
I'm Congressman Khanna, Holler the Holler.
Ro, thanks so much. Stay in touch. Talk to you again down the line. I'm sure I'll see you out there sometime.
You're a great voice. Thank you for what you're doing.
Appreciate it.